Good evening. We'll go ahead and begin open session for the Franklin-McKinley School District Board meeting. We will start with item 3, general matters. Item 3.01, the land acknowledgement statement, which I will read now. We acknowledge that the Franklin-McKinley School District and our schools are located in the Muwekma Ohlone Nation, the sovereign nation and original people of the skies, land, and waters where we learn and work. The Muwekma Ohlone people are the stewards of these lands and of the teaching and learning that comes from and responds to the needs of the land and the people who share it. May our daily lives, work, learning, teaching, and community engagement support the evolving vision of the Muwekma Ohlone for their community and these lands. We will now go to item 3.02, the flag salute. And Board Member Rosado, if you could lead us in the flag salute tonight. Thank you, Board Member Rosado. We will now go to item 3.03, approve, disapprove additions to the agenda. Hearing none, we will go to item 3.04, approve, disapprove order of the agenda. None, we will go to item 3.05, report of action taken in closed session. Superintendent Cruz.
Yes, thank you. The board unanimously approved the closed session minutes for the meeting of June 8th, 2021. The board took action in closed session to dismiss a paraprofessional. Board unanimously approved the action. The board also unanimously approved the appointment of Mr. Kwok Tran as the next Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services. Mr. Tran is here with us, but you can't see him because he's sitting in the back. And we welcome him to our FMSD community and looking forward to working with you. And there are no other actions to report.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Cruz, and congratulations to Mr. Tran. We will now move on to item 4, oral communications. Item 4.01, members of the public may address the board on any issue within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board or agenda items. Members of the public may also address the board on consent items before the board's consideration of the items. In accordance with board bylaws 9323, individual remarks will be limited to 3 minutes each unless otherwise stipulated. No action can be taken on any agenda items at this time. Questions may be referred to the administration or put on a future agenda. Superintendent Cruz, do we have any public comments at this time? Hearing none, we will now go to item 5, information, action, and/or action items. We will start with item 5.01, the 2020 to 2021 local indicators for Franklin-McKinley School District. And I see Dr. Martinez-Palmer. Thank you. Okay.
So good evening. We're here for information only to share with you our reflection tool that we went through in the process for the local indicators. As you know, we're required, every district is required to go through the process of self-assessment and looking at the items that are not covered by the California dashboard. And so we'd like to present to you that this information, which was used to shape our Lcap. So this is Dr. Feldman, and she will be giving most of the presentation, and I will help her.
Thank you. Good evening, President Afzal Bertha, members of the FMSD Board of Education, Superintendent Cruz, and members of the community. Annually, school districts in California are asked to measure progress on both state and local indicators. Tonight, we will share an update on the local indicator findings according to the framework of the CDE self-reflection tools. For each local indicator, there are 3 performance levels: met, not met, and not met for 2 or more years. A local indicator is based on locally collected data, and these can vary from district to district across the state, whereas state indicators are consistent across all districts throughout the state. This chart shows the 8 priority areas that are the state versus the local indicators. And what we're going to focus on tonight are 1, basic services, 2, implementation of state standards, 3, parental engagement, 6, school climate, and 7, which is access to broad course of study, will be the focus for this update. Typically, achievement and student engagement data help to indicate the areas of strength and those in need of improvement. However, this past year, due to the pandemic, the state did not conduct SBAC assessments. So for this year, we are really relying on the local data from the Renaissance Star assessment and other assessments and surveys to focus our Lcap goals and metrics. The local indicator information helps to shape the Lcap that will hopefully be adopted this evening. Using the self-reflection tool provided by CDE, here are the local indicator findings. So priority 1, which is basic services and conditions. Our assessment is that these measures were met, and the Williams settlement review by the Santa Clara County Office of Education, we passed. There were no misassignments of teachers. All teachers hold the required certification for integrated and designated English language development and other subject areas, and all positions were filled with credentialed teachers this year. All sites received a good rating on the facilities review from SCOE. Next, priority 2, the implementation of state standards. On the reflection tool, ratings going from 1 to 5 were provided from our principals. Strengths include aligning materials with state standards and supporting staff to deliver instruction. Areas for improvement included social studies, and just to know, we'll be addressing that through a middle school social studies adoption piloting next year, and then adoption the following year, and elementary piloting the year after with adoption subsequently. Sorry, I'm tripping over my words. Areas rated lower on the principal's assessment here are places that we're going to need to pay more attention to in the upcoming 3-year Lcap plan. Norma, would you like to do
Yes.
the parent?
So the 3 areas that are required as we look at local indicators around parental engagement are, what happened? Building relationships, building partnerships for student outcomes, and seeking input for decision-making. And so I took the opportunity when I met with our district advisory committee, which has parents on that committee, as well as staff members, to ask them, how do we rate in terms of these 3 areas? So we talked a lot about building relationships, and building relationships means just being able to know our families, for a staff to make efforts to get to know the community, the staff being able to, the parents to be able to feel that they were listened to build those relationships. And so the consensus was that we were initial implementation, that in some schools it's very strong, in other places it's an area that we need to work on. But of all these 3 areas, that was one of the ones that we felt was the strongest. The second one is building partnerships for student outcomes. And what that defines is that that parents know how to help their kids at school, at home, that they know how to support the educational program, that they get ideas for how to support their children. And in order to do that, you have to build a partnership. Often the federal government refers this as the family engagement framework, which really talks about a two-way communication approach rather than a one-way communication approach. Traditionally, we know that parent involvement sounds like parents are sought out and then are involved in the school, whereas in family engagement, we're really talking about a two-way approach. And so we had a really great discussion at the last district advisory committee meeting, and we looked at our parent policy, and it was consensus that we really needed as a district to spend more time looking at how we're implementing that parental policy in our district, because I think there's an appreciation for parental involvement, but it seems like we need to be more intentional about how we're doing it. So the rating that we gave ourselves was a 3. And then on the third component on seeking input for decision-making, we felt that it was a 2, that we're beginning to develop that. One of the challenges that I've observed and one of the challenges that was shared in that conversation is that our parents are willing to come to meetings, but they're not willing to lead, and they're not always willing to take ownership, if you will, around those decisions. And so that's something that we talked about. And so that if you remember in the Lcap, I actually put an item in there about how we're going to create opportunities for parents to learn leadership and how to get more involved and how to systemically get them aware of the different ways that they can be involved. And so all this information was helpful in shaping our Lcap. I have here some percentages on how our families rated on the Lcap survey, and you can see they're very high percentages. The families that respond to the survey feel welcome. They feel that the school responds favorably. In fact, during the pandemic, I had a very specific question about whether communication with school this year, was it favorable or not? And it was very, very high. So for the most part, the parents that answered the Lcap survey were very positive. But we all know that there are parents that didn't answer the Lcap survey who may feel differently. So one of our goals is to actually reach out, do more outreach, and find out how different parents actually perceive these items. So this slide just shares some of the ways that we've identified focus areas for the future for building relationship. The area that we selected is that we want to support staff to learn about family strengths so that we're asset oriented. The second one is building partnerships for student outcomes. And that is really intentionally working with our schools so that they really know how to partner. It's not just about asking parents to be involved, but how do we create those relationships and how do we provide the tools for parents to feel comfortable being engaged. And then here I put the family engagement policy. And as I mentioned, that was how should I say this? A very animated discussion around the policy. And then of course, I already talked about how we can engage our families in leadership, but also how we can engage our external partners. We have a lot of partners with Franklin-McKinley, a lot of community agencies. So how do we get them connected with our parents as well so that we're all working towards the same goals?
Thank you. All right, so the next one is priority 6, which is school climate. So this is based on the 2021 California Healthy Kids Survey. And this survey really, the responses indicated a need to focus on issues such as student connectedness, growth mindset, and student self-efficacy. So in response, we're going to be piloting MTSS next year, which is the multi-tiered systems of support at 5 sites. And we're also going to be providing a social worker at every site and intervention support staff at every site and professional development on the integration of social emotional learning into instruction, as well as restorative and trauma-informed practices, because clearly that's a need. Priority 7, access to a broad course of study. So this is measured by the student information system, looking at the master schedules, the course catalog, ensuring that students with disabilities have access to the general education textbooks and curriculum and programs. And in this one, there are some challenges that continue. So for example, English learners, there's a challenge with having access to electives at the middle school that has a 6-period day, or ensuring that elementary school students have adequate access to social studies and science in a multi-subject classroom. And so to address these concerns, next year, we're going to be piloting NGSS science curriculum for K through 6. We will be providing intervention specialists for each site. There's going to be implicit bias training for all staff and professional development for elementary school teachers on literacy strategies for English learners. So we're really trying to move in the direction of supporting elementary school teachers to ensure that all subjects are taught in culturally responsive ways. Why won't it forward? We have another slide, but it's not letting us access it. Here we go. So all of the local indicators, all of this self-reporting is due to CDE by November 1st. And then what happens is it will get published on the dashboard. So it will be publicly available. So I would love to pause at this point and see if what questions you might have.
Members, any questions? Any other questions? Well, thank you for the presentation. I did have a question, I think 2 slides back. You go. I guess this is the wrong way. Let me pull it up on my screen. So I make
Which
sure.
slide is it?
It's slide 13. So in terms of like course catalog, like the courses being offered and I guess this might also tie into curriculum. Can you talk about any of the work that we've potentially started around ethnic studies, especially since the board, adopted the resolution with that and what that might look like, even if we haven't started that, but what that might look like envisioning for the future?
I would be happy to. So we actually have launched the Ethnic Studies Committee, and we had our first meeting about a month ago. And it was a combination of teachers and administrators and community members as well. We had a professor from San Jose State join us, and also a teacher and board member from another district. And it was a great discussion, and Norma, feel free to jump in and add to it. And basically what we were doing was starting to do some learning and starting with building our own understanding of what is ethnic studies and really building sort of a deeper understanding of what does this mean and what is the vision that we want to create for how this will then impact teaching and learning in our district. So we don't yet have sort of a plan for here are the courses that will be developed, but I know for a fact that our middle school leadership is chomping at the bit and they cannot wait to develop some modules and potentially some electives and, figuring out the ways to weave it in to instruction. So that is going to be, I think, a big piece of the work of that committee for the upcoming school year, and everyone is welcome to join us. You want to add?
Yeah, I think I'll just add that before we can actually implement anything, like Sarah said, we have to agree on what is the vision and what's the approach we want to take. And so We want to do as much learning as we can. We're looking at all the resources that are out there around ethnic studies because there's different ways to approach ethnic studies. You can either have standalone ethnic study courses, which is more of a contributions approach, versus a more integrated approach where we actually teach students to question what they read and what's in front of them. And then we integrate kind of different multiple perspectives, identifying, taking into account their background. So we have to agree there's different approaches to ethnic studies. What approach do we want to take as a district? What would that look like with social studies? What will that look like in language arts? How do you apply culturally responsive practices during the content area instructions? So I think the first thing is to go slow, build team, learn together, and then come up with a plan.
Thank you for sharing that. I know it's slightly related to the course catalog and what could be coming up ahead, but I think certainly related to other areas of these local indicators that we're monitoring. So
yeah,
excited to learn more about that as we continue to monitor our progress on these areas.
I leave it in good hands.
And one of the things that I know we've been really being intentional about is in the vetting of the new curriculum, right? Making sure that there's a cultural responsive lens that is looked at when we are evaluating, when they're going to be evaluating the language arts, the science curriculum, the social studies, so that there's that intentional, even from the very beginning. And then really looking at how we integrate it in everything that we do, right? So it's not this sort of just standalone and sort of approach, but there's a lot of learning that we have to do that has already been done at the county level with San Jose State. And that's one of the, we invited one of the professors from San Jose State that has been working with the county and with Overfelt in teacher development around how do you approach culturally responsive teaching in the lens of ethnic studies. So excited to be able to, build this in with the work that we're doing with DEEB and inclusion. So it really is coming together all at this point in regards to how we envision the district moving forward.
Thank you for indulging me and sharing that update as well. Appreciate the overview on the local indicators and also that update as well. Thank you so much.
And I'll just say, Board President, that we are planning on bringing an update to the board, once the committee gets going and some of the things that they'll develop, so as to keep the board informed and the progress that we're making towards that end.
Great, thank you. We will now go to item 5.02, the approval of the annual updates for the 2019-20 Lcap and 2021 Learning Continuity Plan and the 2021-2022 Local Accountability Plan for the Franklin-McKinley School District. That was a mouthful. All right. And this is from Dr. Martinez-Palmer as well.
Yeah. Just because the audience won't be able to hear what you're saying, so thank you.
So at the last board meeting, we had a public hearing on the annual updates for 2019-20, the learning continuity plan for this year, 2021, and then of course our proposed LCAP for 21-22. So today we're asking that the board respectfully adopt our LCAP.
Board members, do you have any questions or comments on this item? I'll accept a motion whenever you're ready.
Move to approve information item 5.02, the approval of the annual updates for the LCAP and 2020 plan, the 21-22 local control accountability plan.
Item 5.02, which is the 2019 to 2020 LCAP, 2020-2021 Learning Continuity Plan, and the 21-2022 Local Accountability Plan for the Franklin-McKinley School District has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. That motion passes unanimously. We will now go to item 5.03, the 2021 to 2022 adoption budget for the Franklin-McKinley School District. We have Jason.
Hello, good evening. On June 8th, staff presented the proposed budget for 21-22, including the multi-year projection. At this point in time, we're asking the board to approve the budget for next year. But of course, if there are any other questions that you have in relation to the proposed budget, let me know.
Board members, any questions or comments on the proposed budget?
No, just to ask, I know you gave us a pretty, extensive presentation the other day. So not much has changed in that regard, right? Pretty much everything.
Since the last presentation on June 15th, the legislature completed their budget proposal to the governor. It's on his desk. He's looking through it and he's figuring out what he's going to keep and what he wants to change. And they're going to debate on that and negotiate. And hopefully we'll have a budget that's signed and approved before the month is over that we can start diving into. And then hopefully soon thereafter, there'll be budget trailer language that we can look at because that really helps us process the information.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Motion.
Move to approve information item 5.03, fiscal year 21-22 adoption budget for Franklin-McKinley School District.
Second.
Item 5.03, the 2021 to 2022 adoption budget for Franklin-McKinley School District has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. We will now go to item 5.04, the discussion and approval of the date and set the time of the school special board meeting for filling the vacancy on the Franklin-McKinley School District Governing Board. So this item was based on Board Member Rosado's resignation. We know that we did establish that we were going to follow a provisional appointment process to fill that vacancy. And I believe the date is June 29th.
So Board President, tonight for discussion for the board is now that the deadline for the applications to be submitted has passed, we now know, if you can pass it, we do have 4 candidates that I have verified that they are registered to vote in Franklin-McKinley and they are residents of the district. And so they meet the qualifications as set by law in their candidacy. And they have signed the verification that they meet all the other qualifications as well. This board had decided that a community advisory interviews be conducted. And so those were scheduled for tomorrow on the 23rd. I want to let you know that we do have a composition of an advisory committee so far. We have 4 parents, Hua Van Lee, Estrella Vergara, Loan Vu, and Magdalena Lopez that are representing parents. We also have the president of the Lone Bluff Neighborhood Association, Ms. Orlando Mejia. Representing Catholic Charities, we have America Aguirre. Representing the Teachers Association, we have Scott Schulimson. Representing the Classified Association, we have Dario Lomeli. Representing the administrative team, AXA team, we have Magdalena Moore. And representing First Five, we have Keith Morales. Those are who we have confirmed that will be here tomorrow. What I wanted the board to give direction to the administration is in regards to the charge for the advisory committee. We have 4 candidates. In the past, we had the board had elected to have set a number of the candidates that the committee was to refer as finalists to the board. We obviously had more candidates at that time than in this particular case. So the question that the administration has to the board is, would you prefer that the advisory committee submit all or only some of the 4 candidates? And if it is all, in what way would you see the committee's feedback being provided to the board? And I have some ideas. I just wanted to make sure that the board had an opportunity to discuss that the number of candidates that the board would like to move forward to the final interview with the board on the 29th.
Maybe perhaps we can start with that first piece, is to establish what the number of candidates, given that there's 4 applicants.
I do feel we that with the 4 applicants that we have, I do want to give that kind of ability for the advisory committee to make the recommendation of who they want to bring forward. So I'm comfortable with moving with three applicants. So the board can interview 3 applicants.
Yeah, if I may, it may be helpful for me to share sort of what the potential feedback the committee could also provide if you did choose all 4. In the past, the board has asked not to submit the finalists ranked, meaning that their scores would not be indicated in terms of, in the way that the committee figured out who was the first, second, and third, fourth candidate. That they withered it down, and so these were the finalists. The way that we can satisfy that, and all candidates could also move forward, would be that I would be able to summarize from their assessment sheets, which has the strengths and concerns, and I would be able to gather all that information, summarize it, and provide that information to the board about how the committee felt, the strengths on each of the candidates and the concerns of each candidate. So the board would still be getting the advisory committee's feedback and how they felt about each candidate, but you still would reserve the opportunity to select any of the 4 if you wanted to do it that way. The other way would be like we did it last time, just a number, and again, not ranked, and none of those comments come or can come to the board as well if you choose to. Last time it was simply just sending the finalists to the board. So those are different ways that we can provide that level of feedback to the board from the advisory committee if you choose to.
Given those additional consideration or options, do we have additional thoughts on the process or the number of candidates?
Yeah, originally I thought that we might have more than 4. I was looking maybe 8, that 8, might come forward around there for some reason. That number came to me 8, but we have half of that, 4. So 4 is not, a very large number. So depending on how many minutes we want to spend with each one, we could definitely have of course, the other committee take a look at them, kind of give us their observations, and then we take that into consideration also as we move forward to interview these individuals.
So do you want to go with 4 candidates?
I don't mind going with 4. The committee were to come forward and say, well, we really feel we want to move these 3 forward, then I would feel comfortable with 3.
You want
A
to
lot
give
would
that
depend
option
on
to
that
the
committee.
committees
Yeah.
to do that, or?
No, I
Do we
think
give them an option or not?
My thought is I would prefer for us to establish that now and give the board direction on whether or not because it kind of changes the dynamic of what we're asking
True.
the committee to do. Are we asking them to move the 3 names forward? Are we asking them to evaluate the strengths and the concerns, which could be done in either case.
Right, either case.
Which
correct.
I think we should do that in either case is
correct.
definitely have them focus on that.
Yeah.
So either we move with 3 candidates, that gives the advisory committee to narrow it down to 3, and then also give us the observation of the strengths and cons of each candidate, so the board can take that into consideration.
I mean, given that there's only 4, my personal take on this is we should move all 4 forward and give the committee the opportunity to give us more their take on the strengths and concerns of these 4. I would like to be able to give the board more choice in this sense. I mean, I know in previous cycles of the appointments, we had, 6 or
Right.
more, candidates.
And more. And that would be fine with me, also. And again, the committee could come forward and, give us a view on each one. And who they felt was, maybe a little bit stronger in this area or that area. And they may feel that this individual might be stronger here, not so strong here, so on. But that's something that we can definitely take from the committee and definitely take into consideration. Because, we're setting up the committee, and that is an important charge that we've given them. And so I definitely want to make sure that we respect the charge that we've given them and take their comments into consideration.
Right.
Even though they're not ranking them, they're not ranking them, but at least coming forward with, pros and cons.
Right. No, my thought process and why we're advancing with 3 instead of 4 is just to give that drives committee yet another opportunity to narrow it down to what
Right.
they think are
More
the
so.
best 3 candidates of the 4 candidate pool. But considering it is low amount of applicants, I'm fine with either way, if we want to move it 4 or we want to move it 3. So I think we're in consensus with 4 then. We'll just move all candidates forward and we'll have only the advisory committee provide us the strengths and cons of their feedback of all 4 candidates they interview. Okay.
And just to be clear, the committee, what I would do is summarize all the committee members' comments into one document. So that it is the summary of those concerns. So it won't be presented to you from each stakeholder. It would be a summary of all their notes, both for each candidate. I just want to make sure that
Superintendent Cruz, on that note, if it's possible, would it be possible for you to read back the notes to the committee just to verify that that captures what the committee's, the totality of the individuals that were in the group?
Absolutely. And we can, one of the things that we offered last time is the committee members could also come in person at the 29th and make a public comment directly to the board. And I believe that at that time, the chair of the committee came and spoke about the process and how the candidates that were moving forward. So that will be part of what we allow for any of the candidates or any of the committee members to come and speak directly to the board as well. But that I will make a note that before we finalize and agree that everybody agrees that it captures their feedback appropriately.
I wonder if the superintendent couldn't, and I don't know how this will be done, to talk to the candidates in terms of the commitment that they're willing to make, the time commitment and all those things that go along. So once they jump in, they go, wow, that's a lot more than I expected. But and I don't know whether that would sway anybody, but at least to give them an idea of the time needed to do to do a good job, at least a decent job as a board member, so they have a better sense of how much time they have to devote to this position.
I certainly, it's not my role to do that. We can certainly have a question, and I'm looking at the questions from last time, and I do believe there were some questions around their understanding of the commitment to the position.
Okay, that would be good. Yeah.
that would be something that we can explore in terms of the questions so that can
Right.
reveal itself. That would not be
That would be
part of
good. Yeah.
my role in this process.
Right, okay.
Are the questions for the advisory committee set as well? Are they generating?
We generated them from the list of questions that we had previously. And those questions are brought to the board and say, look, these were already the questions that were asked. And so at the 29th, you will also have a part of the first discussion is what questions do you want to ask before we start. We will generate the list, finalize it, print that for the board and for the candidates to have in front of them before the process starts. So that's how
Right.
it's agendized for the 29th.
And I did have one more question. In terms of these 4 individuals, are these individuals all registered within the Franklin-McKinley School District?
Yes, we verified that they are registered voters within Franklin-McKinley. We verified their address, that it is within the Franklin-McKinley boundaries. And again, there's a declaration that they signed that they meet all the other qualifications, that they're not felony and all those things.
Right.
But the 2 things that that we are obligated to verify, we did already for all 4 candidates.
Because I did have a concern with one, but you've answered the question in terms of the verification. So thank you for that.
Any other questions? So if not, we'll accept that. If we want to go ahead and make the motion so that we can make sure it's clear to the public what we're deciding.
Oh, sorry. The time on June 29th, is that still set at 2 p.m.?
That's for now that we know it's 4 and that you're bringing also 4. That's something that the board can now decide whether you want to start at 2 or you want to move it. That's something also for consideration.
I'm fine moving it to 12
Earlier?
earlier on Tuesday.
You're going to say later.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I
No,
thought you
no,
said-
let's say later too.
I was saying, let's move it to 4.
That's my lunch period.
4 o'clock.
But that's totally up to like you, Maywana, and George, if you want to spend your.
Schedule's flexible that day, so
It's what, it's flexible?
yeah, I'm flexible that day.
I'm okay with moving it earlier. That's fine with me. You want to move it that early? At 12 would be.
Superintendent Cruz.
And how many minutes are we giving to each candidate? Maybe. Yeah, that sounds about right. 45 minutes. Mhm.
Right.
And so if you want to start at 12, then we start, the way we did it in front of you is the order or the advisory committee and the way we do it so that it's, fair and there's no, we just basically do it by alphabetical order, by
Mhm.
last name. And then what we do for the board, those candidates, then it's inverse. Right, so this way nobody has any concerns about them being first or last all the time. So that's sort of the practice that we used last time. We'll continue with that. So we would send their time slot in which to arrive, and obviously arrive a little bit early
Mhm.
if we're running early from that standpoint. So if you want to start at 12, let me just make sure that there's nothing else that day that. I think it should work.
We can go even earlier if you want.
I have a meeting that ends at 12. I can end a little earlier, but
Okay.
if need to, need be, I could excuse myself a little earlier, probably 11:30 at the earliest.
Okay.
Wanted. Part of this is, again, getting through the first part of the meeting, the questions and all those things. Last time it took us, 10, 15 minutes to get that all settled, and then we started right with the interviews after that. And then obviously the time that you will have to deliberate, that's completely up in regards to the board and how quickly you can come to a consensus.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So we started 12, I'm looking at maybe 12 to 5 o'clock, pretty much, an hour per.
If we did an hour just to make sure that there's cushion and also for the beginning of the meeting,
Right.
it's probably, we would block off 12 to 5.
Yeah, that would be fine. Mhm. It's fine.
Just because I want to make sure that I send this to the candidates. They knew that it was the 23rd and the 29th. I did let them know that we would start at 11 o'clock, but didn't actually send them their start time just yet until tonight. When we're done. If we are going to change the time, if they had already listened to the discussion from the board, they would have known that we're going to start at 2. So the sooner that I can let them know that it's earlier, then this way there's no conflicts.
Mhm. That'd be good.
If we want to formalize this with a motion, and that way it's clear to the public as well, what
Mhm.
the process as well as the time.
Correct.
Oh, that's a long motion, isn't it? See.
Regarding the input for the committee. Candidates moving forward.
So move to,
Recommend.
to recommend the timeline for the board vacancy appointment process. To have the advisory committee to interview all applicants, and provide the board their feedback. And then the time set for Tuesday, June 29th to start at 12 p.m. Am I missing anything from that motion? And all 4 candidates be moved on to the interview with the board.
Mhm.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
So item 5.04 has been moved that the board is directing the advisory committee to provide strengths and concerns for each of the 4 candidates. That all 4 candidates will be moved to be interviewed by the board on June 29th with a starting time of 12 p.m. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes 3 with 1 abstention. Okay. We'll now go to item 6, consent items under 25,000. Members of the public may address the board on consent items before the board's consideration of the items. In accordance with board bylaws 9323, individual remarks will be limited to 3 minutes each unless otherwise stipulated. Do we have any public comments this time? Superintendent. Board members, let me know if there are any items you would like to pull. Otherwise, we'll accept a motion.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve consent items 6.06 through 6.01 through 6.12.
Items 6.01 through 6.12 have been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. We will now go to item 7, consent items over 25,000. Again, members of the public may address the board on consent items before the board's consideration of the items. In accordance with Board Bylaw 9323, individual remarks will be limited to 3 minutes each. Unless otherwise stipulated, any public comments on this item? Board members, let me know if there's any items in item 7 or even 8 that you'd like to pull. Hearing none, I'll accept a motion.
Move to approve consent items 7.01 through 7.10.
Items 7.1 through 7.10 have been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. We'll go to item 8, construction items. Are there any public comments on this item? No. Board members, anyone like to pull the item? Otherwise, I'll accept a motion.
Move to approve consent items 8.01.
That's second.
Item 8.01 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. We will now go to item 9, action items, starting with item 9.01, the personnel report. Vice President.
Madam President, I move that the personnel report be approved as submitted and that A, the employment for the following employee be approved: Yolanda Flores, noon duty supervisor at Dahl, effective 8/16/21. B, the resignation of the following employee be approved: Yadira Darris, paraeducator at Los Arblas, effective 6/21/21.
Second to the motion.
Second.
The item 9.01 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Vice President Tran. We will now go to item 9.02, the June 8th, 2021 board meeting minutes. Hopefully, board members, you've had a chance to review those minutes. I will accept a motion when you are ready.
Second.
Item 9.02, the June 8th, 2021 board meeting minutes has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. That motion passes unanimously. We will now go to item 9.03, reporting on delegating authority to take the necessary action to protect students and staff from the spread of coronavirus. Superintendent Cruz.
Yes, and I'd like to report that on Monday, we opened up in-person summer school for over 1,000 students, and want to thank a team effort, Norma leading the way from Ed Services, and with Sarah Feldman and Christina, principal over at Franklin, that also took the lead on coordinating summer school with business services and facilities, making sure that the facilities were ready and food is ready, and HR making sure that we had all the appropriate staff. So this is one of those things that it crosses all through almost every division. And we got it going on Monday, and we're continuing to work with families to make sure that we're filling every seat. We would definitely do not want to have a seat unfilled. And so they're confirming with those students that didn't show up, and then we'll be offering the spots to those that are on the wait list at this point. So I look forward to having any of you, if you want to do any kind of tours of our summer programs, let me know, and we will schedule those and go out and see firsthand the work that our staff are doing. We do have sort of our regular academic program at 4 schools, CCA, Bridges, Santee, and Windmill. And because we weren't able to get enough credential teachers, we did then open up our sort of summer camp type program with an arts program and Catholic Charities and our choral program over at Dahl. So for those students that did not, we weren't able to get into the regular summer program, we did offer them, and that's a full day, the same number of days as summer school. So they're at least getting an opportunity to come to our schools, get away from home, get away from the screens, and having a full day program. So excited about that. And then obviously we are preparing for the coming fall. And so as more information is available, We will be sharing that with our stakeholders. You may have seen the invitation to town hall meetings for our families coming up on next week. And then, as I had mentioned to you before, we will have another one in July. And again, just trying to keep our families updated with the latest information that we have about, the plans for August and what kind of support we'll need from them as well to address whatever recommendations we'll have from public health. But looking forward to a couple of days off in July and getting ready for August soon after that. Thank you.
Superintendent Cruz. And hopefully we'll be in our last of our updates on the COVID spread of coronavirus, since public health has also,
Yes. Hopefully.
the state has now reopened. So we're moving forward. We'll now go to item 10, communications from the superintendent.
No more comments.
Thank you. We will now go to item 11, communications from the Board of Education, starting with 11.01, board member reports. And before we get started with that, I do have one can hear, hopefully. So it is Clerk Rosado's final board meeting with us. And so we just wanted to publicly recognize and thank you for all of your service to our district, your involvement in our community, and just everything we've learned from, working alongside you as our colleague and your leadership. So we have a little something for you. So board member reports, board member Sanchez, if you'd like to give your report.
Oh, well, I just again want to say thank you to Carrie for all the work you've done. 2 years you've been on the board, right? Or 3? 3 years. Wow, time flies, huh? When you're on the board. Goodness gracious. And I expect to see you in a future board too, wherever you end up, I'm sure you'll do a great job there also. And I think, Norma, is this your last meeting with us? And I also want to thank Norma and for everything she's done for our district, and all the reports and everything else that you do very well, very, very well. So you leave some big shoes to fill. So, but thank you very much for all your hard work. And I did attend Silverdale graduation, and that was kind of fun. I did spend some time there. The first one was at 8:30. And then there was one at 9:30, at 10:30, 11:30. So it was about 260 kids graduate. So they went through the blacktop. And so they drove around the cars. It was kind of, the cars came around and had a real nice stage set up for the kids. So the kids got off the car, went up to the stage, took a picture there, and then went down, got back in the car and drove away. So it was pretty timely and very well done. And I did get a chance to say thank you to the kids, congratulate them and the parents also. So that was, that's my report.
Thank you, Board Member Sanchez. Vice President Tran?
I also want to thank you, Carrie, for the years you spent with us on the board. Wish you the best with your future endeavors. Let us know how you're doing. And Norma, sad to see you go. Well, thank you for spearheading the dual immersion programs. Having the first Vietnamese dual immersion language program in Santa Clara County says a lot. It took a lot of effort. I know that all the work that you put in definitely left a huge impact on the Franklin-McKinley School District. Also wish you best in your retirement. So let us know if you ever want to come back. That's it. That's all I have.
Thank you, Tom. Carrie? Thank you, Carrie. Once again, it's just been incredible to work alongside your leadership. I'm going to take so many things and continue to learn from everything you do, and hopefully even potentially attend some of your DEI work that you're continuing to carry forward. It's great that you've been offering so much of that virtually as well. And to Dr. Martinez Palmer as well. I know I've called upon you several times. And I just always really appreciate your willingness to, reflect on our work that we're doing and thinking about how we can continue to grow. So really appreciate all of your ongoing collaboration and leadership in our district. And best wishes in retirement. It'll be, I'm sure, difficult for you to slow down after all of this work you've been doing. And just want to provide some updates. I was able to attend the final CDAC meeting of this school year, where we talked about lots of things, but I think top of mind was also planning for next year and just reflecting on this past school year. And then some very well put together, very exciting promotion celebrations, drive-through promotion celebrations at Franklin, which was their kindergarten promotion. It was so adorable. And Windmill Springs, which the excitement again was there. Then also participated in organizing a press conference with the Digital Equity Coalition and the Santa Clara County Office of Ed around the state budget and making sure that $7 billion is allocated in broadband infrastructure. So we're hoping the governor continues to stand by his own proposal and the legislature as well, and that our state can finally have access to the infrastructure we need for all of our residents. My report. We will now go to item 11.02, agenda item requests. Are there any agenda item requests at this time?
Is there going to be a facilities tour this year one? Plan this too. It just hasn't been scheduled in the agenda. Thank you.
Any other agenda item requests? Right, so there are a couple of requests there with some dates, and we'll now go to 12, future business, item 13, future meeting dates. 13.01 is our special board meeting on June 29th. That start time is now noon, and the public may also participate virtually. Then we have our next regularly scheduled board meeting, 13.02, is August 10th, followed by 13.03, which is August 24th. 13.04, September 14th, and hopefully that will also have our parent meeting at Bridges Academy. So great things to come in the future. Item 14, closed session. The board will not be returning to closed session at this time. So we're at 15, adjournment. I will accept a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn at this time.
Second.
The motion has been made to adjourn and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And that motion passes. We are now adjourned at 8:13.